Welcome to the Athletic FC podcast with me, Ayo Akinwolere. Pep Guardiola has agreed to extend his contract at Manchester City. So why has he decided to stay? And will he be able to build another team to dominate the Premier League? I'm joined today by the Athletics Manchester City correspondent Sam Lee and our Barcelona writer Paul Ballús as well, who has written a great book about the super team that is Pep's City. Right, Sam, let's start with you. It was your exclusive actually that dropped on the Athletic last night that Guardiola has indeed agreed a new 1 year contract extension with the option of an additional year. Right. I'm caught in two worlds here. On one side, I'm like, yeah, this is great for the Premier League brand. But for rival
Yeah.
fans, I bet they're just cursing, going, would you just leave the Premier League, please? Did it come as a surprise to you?
Not really, because since the last international break, if you go to the start of that, the news comes out that Cheeky Bagirstein's leaving, the football director,
Mm.
and then you start to think, oh, okay, is this going to be Pep and Cheeky going? But then about a week later, Pep was linked with England a bit, and then that just disappeared after like 36 hours, and there was a bit more noise then about. In fact, the reality is he's probably more likely to stay at City for another year. So then, since the last month, we've basically been working under that assumption. The only element of surprise came in the sense that by Monday I was speaking to people, just like, well, no, there's not been any whispers yet. Like it doesn't seem like it's going to happen this break. But what I said was that that's the thing with the whispers, though. Like until they start to come through, until there's something, whether you see it on Twitter from another reporter or anything, or obviously you get your own sources there is nothing. And I was like, well, we'll see over the next few days if something develops. And then obviously it did. And to be at the point where we are now, where he's going to sign this contract and stay at City, that's not a surprise based on the last month.
Mm.
But I think up until that last month, it seemed like he was more likely to go than stay, I think.
Yeah. Paul, what about you? Any whispers from your side? Anything you heard about whether or not he was going to extend?
Yeah, no, a bit what Sam was saying here. I mean, if you had asked me last summer what I thought that would happen with Pep and where his future lied, I would have said that the most likely thing was for him to go. But seeing how things were panning out, um, yeah, basically just the confirmation that City has been able to build a platform in there just around
Mm.
Pep, just to make him feel comfortable enough to discuss these sort of subjects. Because when he was at Barcelona, that was something that with some boards at the club he wasn't really able to discuss because Pep wanted to focus on football. But at City, he felt that he's in a safer space just to discuss this, to have honest conversations. Um, and I think that also, as Sam was saying, the way that City handled things, um, the way that he was dismissed for the England job so
Mm.
quickly, then Amorim goes to Man United when with Hugo Viana in Man City, you would think that Ruben Amorim could be like a really likely candidate to replace Pep if you have to replace Pep at some point. But there's been no hesitation from City to make Pep the plan A, and their plan B was to convince Pep again. And then if the plan A and the plan B doesn't work, possibly we go to the plan C. That we'll see what this is. But I think that City, yeah, has created this sort of platform to let Pep know that as soon as he wants, he is able to stay, and that we're willing to wait and everything for his decision. And they all decided that now was the right time. I think that it's also looking towards the future because if they have to do something in January, if they have to do a rebuild in summer,
Mm.
knowing that Pep stays is key for any signings, any processes that have to be activated. It's surprising because Pep staying 10 years in the same club is nothing that you could expect. But seeing how things are at Man City, it's not that surprising.
Yeah, we've talked about Cheeky Bagirstein, Sam, and how many would have thought perhaps that was a really good time for Pep to maybe call it a day or whatever. But also Hugo Viana coming in as sporting director now. Do we get a sense of what that relationship is like? And it feels like clearly that Pep's quite happy with the setup right now at City.
Yeah, well, I think it would be better for him if Cheeky Bagirstein was staying because,
Mm,
as much as anything, they're just best friends and they have been forever.
mm,
Um, but I think he obviously trusts Cheeky. I think everybody around the place trusts Cheeky to have helped to identify the right man. It's not something that Cheeky's had no involvement in. He's been doing interviews with Viana. I think Viana's going to be in Manchester for the last months of the season to kind of help smooth over that transition. As far as I know, Guardiola would obviously have been consulted on it. I don't know to what extent he's spoken to Viana. But as much as the club does revolve around Pep and he's the figurehead, but at the same time, he can't make the decision. I want to work with him. I want to work with him. He's going to have to kind of accept working with Viana, whatever happens. But knowing City and the way they want things to work, they're not going to have got somebody in who wouldn't be able to work with Guardiola, where there'd be any kind of friction whatsoever. And obviously with Viana, he's going to have to kind of fit the style that the owners of the club and the chairman Khaldun Al Mubarak that they want to do and hit the heights, because obviously it's not going to be now, but at some point there will be a plan for when Guardiola leaves, and they're not going to be content with, okay, well, we won X amount of trophies under him. They're going to want to get better, and they've obviously identified Viana to do that, and him and Guardiola are going to have to work together. We don't know that it's going to be a success, but I think one of the things with Guardiola being there is on-pitch success is never a guarantee in football, but with Guardiola and, well, to be fair, all of his clubs, let's be honest, it's as close to a guarantee as you're going to get. And as long as things are working on the pitch, the scrutiny of stuff off the pitch and, the complaints, they just go away. Nobody's going, oh, about this signing, he wasn't that good or he wasn't that good. There's just no complaints as long as everything on the pitch is working well. And obviously with Guardiola being there, chances are things are going to be fine.
To be fair, I think that in a way, Pep staying eases a bit Viana's job in the coming months.
For sure.
Because just like imagine that Pep leaves and he just arrives here just before summer, and he has to change the manager, rebuild the whole team, not the whole team, but like the whole structure. That's a big job to do, and in a way that it's a way to ease that project and to grant Viana just some time to plan a bit. And as Sam was saying, the fact that he has been vouched and approved by Chiqui, I think that is enough of a guarantee for Pep to know that he's a guy that he could be okay working with.
Yeah, something I want to go into is that what is Dewey think he's going to be building over the next year or so, but also Sam, very quickly on obviously the 115 charges. Looks like Pep is going to be staying regardless of what the outcome of that is, right?
Yeah, I think I've had to write a few things about Pep's future throughout this year, I guess, definitely 3 or 4 in the last couple of months. And I've always said that I think he would make this decision regardless of the outcome of the charges. I said, I think there might have been a world where City had been found guilty and relegated and he would have gone, actually, I want to stay. But in reality, he would have sorted out his future before that. And again, with Cheeky Begiristain, he's just leaving because he's 60 years old. He's been thinking about it for ages. And he wants to, not live in Manchester anymore and get a bit more sun. Like, it's not to do with the charges. As far as the football operation is concerned, it's always been business as usual. But I'm sure people might read into this that, and not necessarily correctly, but people might read into this that Guardiola is staying because he might have had an indication that the charges has gone well from City's point of view. Not that anybody could know that now, but it's fair to think that people might think that, because let's say they'd announced that Guardiola was leaving, I'm sure plenty of people would have assumed that the charges had gone badly for City. So it makes sense it would work the opposite way around.
I think that there's like a sort of I don't know if combative is the right word, but a spirit in Guardiola that as much as City is punished or doubted or have to prove something, he likes it and he wants to be with the club in the worst possible time as well. Because City is a club that Pep has been quite identified with. He's really identified with how the club works, with the people that he's surrounded. He appreciates a lot how comfortable he is there, and the relationship he has with not just with Chiqui Ferran, with Khaldun as well, with this sort of people, and he wants to defend that club in the worst moments as well. So I've had this sense, even like when there was this UEFA ban that eventually was turned around by TAS. I can remember that press conference where Pep was really like, okay, if you want us like to prove or just to just to not be there, we're going to be fighting, we're going to show what we do on the pitch. So I guess that this is a challenge for him as well, and this was on his mind. But saying that, I think that he knew that he had to make this final decision before the final outcome, because just for the sake of the club.
Mm.
because they need to plan, they need to know what to do in the next transfer windows, and from an operative perspective, it had to be decided now. So that's what they did, and I think that it reflects this sort of Pep's spirit to just to fight against any claims or doubts that there are around Man City.
Okay. Well, let's move to dealings on the pitch. Sam, they've lost 4 in a row in all
Oh yeah,
competitions.
forgot about
Yeah,
that.
let's not forget about that. They do play football as well, you know that.
Yeah.
But do we get this sense, a sense that this news might give City a bit of a boost? Look, never write them off, as we always know, but actually offering some sort of stability amidst this turbulence for them mentally could be really interesting.
Yeah, I think generally and broadly speaking, as long as you've got Guardiola, or the longer you've got Guardiola, the better. And also, generally speaking, I didn't or don't see City's current problems and recent results as indicative of like a major slide. I just think they've had loads of injury problems. There's obviously been other things they need to sort out, and they might not have enough physicality and mobility in midfield to keep up if Liverpool are going to keep winning and winning, and if Arsenal improve, but obviously they're struggling. But they might have to go to the market in January to fix that. They're not the perfect team at the moment, but I don't think, are they going to lose 8 in a row? Are they going to struggle to win the next few games? Maybe because it's Spurs and Liverpool. But I don't think it's like things are massively sliding. I think they just had loads of injuries. So that will steady itself. It's funny, I think 4 years ago when Guardiola signed a new contract, like Liverpool had just won the league. They'd started the season slowly. They weren't playing well. He'd signed, and it was like, oh, is this going to be a boost? And then he went to Spurs at the weekend, and they lost. And it took another 3 or 4 weeks for things to really turn around. And so in that sense, it wasn't that Pep contract then in 2020 wasn't the spark. But by having Guardiola there, they had the man that was prepared and fresh enough to go, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do things differently. And obviously they had the players, Fernandinho in the main at that point, to get everyone together and say, look, we've got to make changes. So I think it's obviously good news long term. Short term, they've still got the same problems in terms of injuries. They might still be lacking in midfield without Rodri. But knowing that Guardiola's going to be there, obviously in 2 or 3 months, that is enough to think, for me, they'll be fine. But long term, knowing that you can also start planning for transfer windows. And like Paul said, players will think, okay, well, if Pep's going to be there, especially with the prospect of it maybe doing 2 years, that adds pulling power. And, if they want to, well, they do want to extend Haaland's contract, for example. And obviously, the longer Pep's there, the higher the chances are that Haaland stays for a bit longer. I mean, if people think that's a good thing, I think there's kind of pros and cons with Haaland. I think they could maybe play a better game if they didn't have him. But obviously, when he's at his best, he does make them more ruthless. But that's for another day. That's a different podcast
That's
idea
a
that we could
different
do next week.
podcast. Easy.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
add that to the bank. Honestly, get the producers on it. Don't you worry, Sam. We got you. Anyway, Paul, it's good news for City, clearly. But I wonder what kind of news this is for rival fans. You don't slide into my DMs often on social media, but I posted something about the sadness I felt as an Arsenal fan that Pep Guardiola has now signed a new contract. Paul's reply: "Sorry for you, mate. Come on, man. Like what?" It's a tough day for Mikel Arteta once again. It's a tough day for Arsenal fans. It's a tough day for the rest of the league, surely.
No, no, mate. Just let me crack a joke wherever I can. I mean, yeah, I've been covering tough seasons in Barcelona. Now I'm a happy man. But yeah, whenever I can, I'm gonna crack a joke here. No, I mean, I think some was saying, I think that for City and the mentality is that just the longer we can have Pep,
Mm,
we are gonna keep him as much as we can. I think that possibly inside the dressing room it's not going to make much of a difference because they are a team that are so focused in like trying to win the next game and,
mm,
and the next game, and they are not in a position just to look a lot like into the long term. But outside of the club and to off the pitch noise and situations, I think that it's good that just Pep stays because it sends a message. Um, I think that it's also. I have to think like Sam that they are going to do they're going to do something in January or they are going to try to do something because
mm,
Rodri's injury. There's people in there who think that basically was like a crack into their planning, basically.
mm.
Um, and yeah, let's see how they fix that in terms of like the unbalance that they have in the team. But with the manager that they know that it's going to stay. It's going to make things easier for sure.
Yeah, do you think this is good for the Premier League, Sam? I think about the Bundesliga and, up until last season, Bayern Munich literally were favourites most times, or if not all the time.
Yeah, always.
Or do you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I'm saying about City? They just keep winning. They just keep winning. They just keep winning. Of course, the Premier League is a competitive competition, but if you have the same outcome every season, I mean, come on, is this good for the brand?
Uh, it's an interesting question, but I feel like when there's comparisons with like the Bundesliga and Liga,
Mm,
1, like, and you talk about the same outcome every season,
mm,
but it's not like City are running away with it 10, 15 points every year. They've not done that for ages. The last three
mm.
titles, I think the biggest gap was 5 points,
Okay.
and that was the season when Arsenal were ahead for most of it, and City just took over at the end. Last year, what was it, two? I think the
Mm,
year when they won it from Liverpool on the final day with that comeback against Villa. You're talking about the brand and the outcome.
mm,
That's drama, isn't it? That I know people don't like it because it's City. And to be fair, look, I think if it was any team, you'd still have the same complaints about it looks a bit stale. But I think
mm,
the races themselves, the fact that we're talking now about our City, they need to do this, are they struggling again? The same conversation we had last year, the same conversation the year before that, oh, they don't look quite right. We don't go through the whole season thinking it's a given that they're going to win the league. It gets towards March and April, and that's how everyone feels. But then they've still got to go and do it. And it's not like they're 10, 15 points. They need to win every game. So whether it's good for the brand, I mean, I think so. You've got the best manager in the world. Like City have got a new documentary out now. I
Yeah,
can't
tell me
imagine
about
many
that.
non-City fans are gonna watch it because it's City. But with these things, they're not for us, are they? They're not for
Mm,
journalists who want to because we try and know as much as we can. We want to know more. But like, so I like golf. I like the NFL, or I like
mm,
the NBA, but I don't watch it all the time. I don't know all the characters, all the stories.
mm,
I watch those documentaries. I'm like, this is great. And you see the journalists who cover those sports, and like, oh yeah, it's a bit weak that. And it's like, see, it's not for you. It's for people like me, isn't it? It's for
mm,
people who don't know and want to get to know. So the last few, I've been like, I've been waiting to see the Cancelo row with Pep
mm.
during the treble season. It's not really in there, and you think, well, that's a shame. But then with this one, there's quite a lot of stuff, and obviously it's just inevitable that it kind of revolves around Pep, or at least for me, the stuff I'm drawn to
Yeah.
is the stuff about Pep and his team talks, whether it's before the game and he's like positive, 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 think positive. And like last year, we were writing about his language, his attitude towards body language, and then there's after the game when Rodri got sent off, and he was like, "You got to learn a lesson." He was like, "Do you have anything to say?" And then Foden gave a penalty away in the last minute against Palace, and he went mad at him. He went mad, and that's all in there. Like, and it's just that's the kind of timely reminder about like how good this guy is. And I think with City, to go back to the same outcome every year, people think it's easy at this point. But you kind of watch it and you think these are human beings. They are footballers. And the 115, they are footballers that have got to go out and they've got to win and they've got to pick themselves up from low points. There's a moment in the documentary where it's after the Manchester derby and Pep's crying because one of the members of staff has got cancer and he's telling the squad and all the staff, like, this is the guy who helped us through COVID and all the protocols and stuff, and he's got cancer. And Pep was crying, like crying into a towel. And it's like, these are people.
Mm,
And then obviously, just even with the other side of it in Guardiola's man management, you think this isn't Football Manager. It's not FIFA. We just get the best players and chuck them together and you're going to win. This is a guy who obviously now, because he's signing on again, has got this incredible hunger to keep going and keep doing it and keep things fresh. And for me, is that good for the Premier League? I think it is. And also, I think when he goes, we'll see that City aren't going to be winning it every year, close or by far or whatever. I think Guardiola is the outlier here. And generally, like I said before about how City feel, I think for me, the longer that Guardiola is here, the better, because you get to cherish him for longer. When he's gone, we'll realise how special he was, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think, he's definitely one of those landmark coaches that has reshaped the way we see football in this country and actually globally. And Paul, I'm
Mm.
just thinking about his time at Barcelona, and I'm thinking about him being a bit of someone who loves solving problems, right? And the big, actually, the big jeopardy this season is whether or not Manchester City can win the Premier League without Rodri. And then I'm thinking, I mean, a key player perhaps at Barcelona was Sergio Busquets. How on earth did Pep problem solve such an influential player within the team? Obviously, they had Messi, so that covers a lot of
Yeah.
situations. But how on earth does he go about reshaping this? And is it within his remit and his means to be able to do it if they don't go and buy in January?
I think it's something that challenges him and that he I mean, he doesn't like not having Rodri, but it's something that he enjoys, just the fact of like thinking, and just trying to find a sort of solution and in a way just to play, I don't know, Rick Lewis inside or Kovacic deeper and Gundogan helping and Bernardo inside. He just loves that. That's the side of the game that I think that he enjoys the most. There's like some frustration, of course, when they lose at Brighton or whatever bad result they got. But I think that, yeah, that's part of what keeps him like thinking, okay, I have a job to do here. So I think that that they have the capacity. Having said that, I also think, yeah, as I said, that they are going to go to the January transfer window and they are going to do something, because they have not signed that many players in recent years. They know that replacing Rodri is tricky because they tried with Calvin Phillips and yeah, the experiment didn't go well. But I think that, yeah, that they will try, and that it's something that keeps Guardiola on his toes for sure.
Yeah, they just don't have that profile of player in the squad, do they? They don't have the
Yeah,
physical
yeah.
guy. But I mean, this is the thing.
It's
Rodri can do
difficult though.
everything.
Like how do you convince a guy just to come and just to play
Yeah,
whatever minutes
yeah,
that Rodri can play? Because as much as Rodri is fit, you are not going to play.
yeah.
And
And
also,
that's
Rodri's
that's
like
been the
three
difficulty in
players
the
in
last few
one,
years.
really, isn't he? Is he a
Yeah,
defensive
Yeah,
midfielder? Is he an attacking midfielder who offers you so much, Sam?
yeah, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like, but just in terms of like the raw attributes, like I'm wary of saying, oh, Man City might need to go to the transfer market to solve their problems in January. People are just going to roll their eyes because the perception is, well, they just spend loads of money anyway, and they've got all these players. And okay, we can say, well, with Calvin Phillips, it didn't work. With Mateus Nunes, it's kind of working now, but he's a left winger at the moment. Like, and he's never going to be the holding midfielder that Rodri is. In terms of putting legs in the middle of midfield, Nunes might be their best bet. He can get back, and he will get back. But talking about Rodri and what he gives you, Nunes isn't that type of player, and he's just not as good quality wise. It's just a fact. So he might have the legs, but what City need to do, and it's not easy, is go and try and find somebody who's got the physicality, got the legs, got the defensive reading of the game, but can, take all of his touches, have the most touches in the Premier League, most of them under pressure, and move City forwards at the same time. Know what's going on backwards. There is no player like that out there other than Rodri, but they need to take a step closer to that than what they've got at the moment, because Guardiola's solution is the small, slow, in this case, ball players to make loads of passes between them. And if the other team can't get the ball, they don't counter attack. But the other team are getting the ball, and when they are counter attacking, Kovacic, Gundogan, Rico Lewis, as good as they are, or maybe have been, they can't get back. We've seen that. Teams are just sprinting through them, and that's the kind of thing they need to add in January. I'm sure if they don't sign anybody, they'll still be at the top end of the table. Maybe they'll win the league. And Guardiola's solution will be just keep the ball as much as possible. But I think they kind of need that edge. And like Paul's saying, it is difficult because which top player is going to come in and say, okay, well, I'll just sit behind Rodri and not play. But maybe now we kind of can start thinking about rebuilds and Guardiola being here for a year or two, and like De Bruyne maybe leaving in the summer because his contract's up. I mean, Gundogan's only just come back and he signed for 2 years, but I
He's
don't
an
know.
aging player, isn't he? Like what?
I mean,
Is he
he's not
33,
started
34
well,
now?
and
Yeah,
I've still
exactly.
got faith that he'll be fine. But he's not started well, and you think if difficult decisions need to be made, you could free up two slots in midfield there, and then the guy coming in, as long as he's versatile, which is what City wanted when they looked at Declan Rice last summer, when they looked at Bruno Guimaraes just gone. It's somebody who can play deep and can play further forward, and they might be able to entice somebody in and say you don't have to worry too much about not playing with Rodri because the midfield's not actually packed because this guy's going and this guy's going, and you are going to play enough, and maybe that's how they get that better caliber of player. Because with Phillips, nobody knew it was going to go as badly as it did. And Nunes, we may see him give something, but right now Nunes isn't what they need in the same way that another Kovacic, as good as Kovacic is, he's not what they need because he's very good in small spaces. And again, it just goes to show how good Rodri is because he's really good in small spaces. He's really good on the ball. He can drive the team forward. He's pretty good at mopping up defensively, but
I
he's just
know.
not quite good as Rodri.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, Rodri's just extraordinary, and we know it. Ballon d'Or winner. Let's face it. Paul. Something Sam there just made me think actually about this contract extension for Pep Guardiola. We talk about what motivates this man, and is it as much as winning more Premier League titles, 6, 7, 8, or actually, I'm just thinking about Jurgen Klopp who left Liverpool, leaving this team in a decent state for whoever does then take over in succession. And actually, where this team is at right now probably isn't that.
I think, in my opinion, that's the main thought that he has in his head. Just making sure that when he leaves, everything is in the right place, and that anyone that comes in can take over with the assurances that they have been given a top project and possibly the best team in the world. I think this is a motivation around him. Also, as we were saying, like the tactical challenges that he has this season, and just fighting, having this opposition with Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, any team that can challenge them at the top that's good. That's what he liked as well for him. I also think that he wanted to play the club's World Cup, because I think, if I'm not wrong, he said that in summer, and he needed an extension to feature in that competition as the City manager. But yeah, leaving that alone, I think that the main motivation is, with all the potential ban or punishments from the charges known, and everything, he wants to make sure that the club is being left in a safer state.
Yeah. Okay. Let's leave it there. Thank you both for joining us, Sam and Paul. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow. If you want to watch more episodes of the show, please subscribe to the channel. We'll be joined by the likes of David Ornstein, Matt Slater, Adam Crafton, Carl Anker, and plenty more through the season. If you'd like to listen to the episodes in full in audio form, search The Athletic FC wherever you get your podcasts from.